The palace stood calm under a soft gray sky. From the outside, everything looked peaceful. Flags moved gently in the wind. Guards stood still at their posts. Tourists far away took photos, unaware that something was about to change inside those ancient walls. Inside the palace, the afternoon was quiet. Most staff were busy with their daily work. Some cleaned long halls. Others prepared rooms for evening meetings. The sound of footsteps echoed softly on the marble floors. Nothing seemed unusual, yet a strange feeling slowly began to grow in one corner of the palace. In the underground parking area, a young royal guard named Thomas was doing his routine check. He had worked here for years and knew the place well. He walked slowly between the parked cars, checking doors, listening, and watching. This was a normal duty, and usually it was boring. But that day, something felt different. As Thomas passed a black luxury car, he stopped. He thought he heard something. At first, he believed it was only the echo of his own steps. He waited and listened. The air was cool and still. Then he heard it again. It was very faint, a soft sound, almost like a small cry. Thomas felt a chill run through his body. He moved closer to the car and leaned down. His heart began to beat faster. The sound was real. It was coming from the back of the vehicle. He placed his hand on the trunk. There was a gentle knock from inside. Thomas stepped back in shock. His mind raced. Who could be inside a car trunk in the palace? This made no sense. He quickly looked around, but the parking area was empty. No one else was nearby. He called his senior officer immediately. "Sir," Thomas said, trying to keep his voice steady, "I think there is someone inside a car trunk." Within minutes, 2 more guards arrived. One of them was Officer James, a senior guard with many years of experience. He listened carefully as Thomas explained everything. James walked to the car and listened himself. The sound came again. There was no doubt now. James checked the car details. When he saw the owner's name, his face became serious. The car was registered to Camilla. The guards looked at each other. This was no longer a simple situation. Rank and rules mattered in the palace, but safety mattered more. James ordered one guard to stay with the car and sent another to call for higher authority. At the same time, palace security was informed quietly. No alarms were raised. No panic was allowed. Camilla was asked to come to the parking area. When she arrived, she looked calm, but her eyes were tense. She asked why she had been called. James explained carefully. He said a sound had been heard from the trunk of her car and asked her to open it. Camilla refused. She said there must be a mistake. She said the car had been parked there all day. Her voice was polite, but firm. She told them they had no right to touch her car. Another soft knock came from inside the trunk. This time, everyone heard it. James took a slow breath. He knew this moment would change everything. He spoke clearly and respectfully, but his words were strong. He said if someone was inside, especially a child, waiting was dangerous. He said the trunk had to be opened now. Camilla's face changed. She stepped back slightly and shook her head. She repeated that the trunk must not be opened. James made his decision. He ordered the trunk to be forced open. One guard used a tool to break the lock. The sound of metal snapping echoed loudly in the parking area. The trunk lid slowly lifted. What they saw inside froze them all. Princess Charlotte was inside the trunk. She was curled into a small space, her knees pulled close to her chest. Her face was pale. Her eyes were wide and full of fear. Her small hands were shaking. She tried to speak, but only a weak sound came out. For a moment, no one moved. Then James rushed forward. He carefully lifted Charlotte out of the trunk and held her gently. She gasped for air and began to cry softly. She clung to his uniform as if letting go would send her back into the darkness. One of the guards quickly removed his jacket and wrapped it around her. Another guard called for medical help. Camilla stood still. Her face had lost all color. She did not speak. She did not move. The parking area, once quiet, now felt heavy and cold. Charlotte was carried quickly to the medical wing. Doctors arrived within minutes. They placed her on a bed and checked her breathing, her heartbeat, and her temperature. She was alive, but very scared and weak. Tears rolled down her cheeks as she whispered for her father. Prince William was informed immediately. When he heard the news, his heart stopped for a moment. He dropped everything and ran. He did not care who saw him. He did not care about rules or appearances. He only cared about his daughter. He reached the medical room and saw Charlotte lying on the bed, wrapped in blankets. Tubes and monitors surrounded her. She looked so small. William walked to her side and took her hand. His hands were shaking. Charlotte opened her eyes slowly and saw him. "Daddy," she whispered. That one word broke him. He leaned down and kissed her forehead. He told her she was safe now. He promised that nothing bad would ever happen to her again. His voice was calm, but inside, anger burned like fire. Doctors explained that Charlotte had been trapped in the trunk for some time. She had trouble breathing, but she would recover. She needed rest and care. As Charlotte slept, William sat beside her. He did not leave. He stared at the door, as if danger might return at any moment. Outside the room, guards stood silent. Some felt guilt. Some felt rage. All felt shock. Later that evening, Charlotte woke up again. This time, she was able to speak a little more. A doctor and a child specialist sat with her, while William stayed close. Charlotte spoke in short sentences. She said someone told her to follow them. They said there was a surprise. She trusted them. Then she was put inside the trunk. The lid closed. It was dark. It was hot. She screamed. She cried. No one came. As she spoke, tears filled the room. William closed his eyes. His jaw tightened. Every word hurt him deeply. The palace went into silent lockdown. No one outside was told what happened. An internal investigation began immediately. Camilla was taken away from the main palace area for questioning. There were no arguments this time. Trust had been broken. That night, the palace felt different. The long halls felt colder. The walls felt heavier. Guards doubled their shifts. Cameras were checked again and again. William sat alone in the corridor outside Charlotte's room as night fell. The lights were dim. The palace was silent. He understood now that this was only the beginning. What happened that day would not stay hidden forever. Truth always finds a way to rise. And when it did, the royal family would face a storm unlike any before. Night covered the palace like a heavy blanket. The bright rooms were now quiet, and the long hallways felt colder than before. Outside Princess Charlotte's room, Prince William remained seated, his back against the wall, his hands folded tightly. He had not slept. Every small sound made him lift his head. His mind replayed the image again and again. His daughter inside a car trunk, alone and afraid. Inside the room, Charlotte slept under careful watch. A nurse sat nearby, checking her breathing and temperature. Charlotte moved slightly in her sleep and whispered soft, broken words. Each sound made William's chest tighten. He wanted to protect her from everything, but he knew he had already failed once. Early in the morning, senior palace officials gathered in a private room. Their faces were serious. No one spoke loudly. This was not a normal meeting. This was about safety, trust, and a child who had suffered inside the palace walls. Officer James stood before them and explained everything in detail. He spoke slowly, clearly, and honestly. He described the sound from the trunk, the refusal to open it, and the moment they found Charlotte. Every word felt heavy. When he finished, the room fell silent. An investigation team was formed immediately. Every camera, every hallway, every minute of that day would be reviewed. No one would be protected by title or position. This was a clear order. Camilla was placed under strict supervision in a separate area of the palace. She was not allowed visitors. Her phone was taken. Guards remained outside her door at all times. She said very little. When she did speak, her words were short and cold. She denied planning any harm. But no one ignored the truth anymore. Charlotte had been found in her car. Prince William was informed of every decision. He listened quietly, his face calm, but his eyes showed deep pain. He told them clearly that his daughter's safety came before everything else. There would be no silence, no hiding, no delay. Later that day, Charlotte woke up feeling weak but more aware. William sat beside her bed and smiled gently. He asked her how she felt. She nodded slightly and held his hand. She did not want to be alone. A child specialist visited again. This time, Charlotte was ready to speak a little more. William stayed close, holding her hand the entire time. Charlotte spoke slowly. She said she was asked to come quietly. She trusted the voice. She thought it was a game. When the trunk closed, she became scared. She cried and screamed. She said it felt like forever inside the dark space. Her words were simple, but every sentence hurt deeply. William listened without interrupting. Tears filled his eyes, but he stayed strong for her. When she finished, he kissed her forehead and told her she was brave. Charlotte smiled weakly. Outside the room, guards and staff stood with heavy hearts. Many blamed themselves. Some could not stop thinking about what might have happened if the sound had not been heard in time. The palace was no longer open to visitors. Security was increased everywhere. Guards were placed at every corner. New rules were announced. No child could move without clear permission and escort. Every vehicle would be checked daily. News had not yet reached the public, but whispers began among staff. A sense of fear spread quietly. This was not a simple mistake. This was a serious crime within the safest place in the country. Prince William met privately with Officer James later that day. He thanked him for acting quickly. James lowered his head and said he only did his duty. William replied that duty had saved his daughter's life. As days passed, Charlotte slowly regained strength. She began to eat again. She smiled more often. But at night, she woke up crying. William stayed near her room every night. He refused to sleep far away. He wanted her to know he was always close. The investigation team reviewed camera footage from the day of the incident. They followed every movement. They saw Charlotte walking toward the parking area. They saw shadows, doors opening, and moments where cameras had been turned away. Each discovery raised more questions. When investigators questioned Camilla again, they presented the evidence calmly. Camera gaps, witness movements, timing. She remained quiet for a long time. When she finally spoke, her voice was flat. She said she never meant for things to go so far. Those words shocked everyone in the room. The palace doctors also gave their reports. Charlotte's health was improving, but they warned that emotional wounds take longer to heal. Trust, once broken, is hard to rebuild, especially for a child. Prince William addressed the senior royal family members in a private meeting. He spoke clearly and firmly. This was not about image. This was about truth. He said the palace must protect its children before protecting its name. No one argued. Late one evening, William sat with Charlotte near the window. The sky was dark, and stars were faint. Charlotte pointed at the sky and asked if she was safe now. William smiled softly and said yes. He promised her again. But inside, he knew safety required action. Plans were made for public disclosure. The truth would be shared carefully and responsibly. Lies would only cause more harm. Morning light slowly filled the palace, but the feeling inside remained dark and heavy. Guards changed shift quietly. Staff spoke in low voices. Everyone knew something terrible had happened, even if the full truth was still hidden from the world. Princess Charlotte was getting stronger each day, but fear still lived inside her. She stayed close to her parents at all times. If someone new entered the room, she held William's hand tightly. Loud sounds made her jump. Darkness made her uneasy. The doctors said this was normal after such a shock. Prince William watched her carefully. Every smile gave him hope. Every tip broke his heart again. The investigation continued without rest. Security teams worked day and night. They reviewed footage again and again. They spoke to guards, drivers, and staff. No detail was too small. The palace, once full of secrets, was slowly opening its doors to the truth. One afternoon, investigators found something important. A camera near the parking area had been turned slightly away for a short time. It was only a few minutes, but those minutes mattered. Records showed who had access to that camera. The list was short. This discovery changed everything. Senior officials gathered again. This time, the room was tense. Evidence was now clear. Someone inside the palace had helped create that moment. This was no accident. Camilla was questioned again. The atmosphere was calm but firm. Investigators spoke slowly. They showed her the camera report. They showed her the timing. They asked simple questions. At first, Camilla said nothing. Minutes passed in silence. Then she spoke. She said she felt trapped for a long time. She said fear and anger had grown inside her. She said she never planned to hurt a child. She claimed she only wanted control. But her words did not change the truth. A child had been locked inside a trunk. The room felt cold. The investigators ended the meeting and recorded everything. Their report would go to the highest authority. There would be consequences. Prince William was informed that evening. He listened quietly. When it was over, he closed his eyes and took a deep breath. He felt pain, anger, and sadness all at once. But above all, he felt responsibility. That night, William walked through the palace gardens alone. The air was cool. The lights were low. He remembered happier days, laughing with his children, walking freely without fear. Those days felt far away now. Inside the palace, Charlotte woke from a nightmare. She cried out. William rushed back inside and held her close. She asked if the bad place would come back. William said no. He said she was safe, and he would always protect her. The next day, a private announcement was prepared. The truth would be shared carefully, without drama, without lies. The focus would be on the child, not on power or status. When the statement was released, the world reacted with shock. People felt sadness, anger, and disbelief. Messages of support poured in for Charlotte and her family. Many praised the gods who acted quickly. Questions were asked. Trust was shaken. Inside the palace, changes began immediately. New safety rules were enforced. More child specialists were brought in. Training was updated. Every system was reviewed. The palace would never be careless again. Camilla was removed from all royal duties. She was no longer protected by silence. Legal steps were taken according to the law. No special treatment was given. This decision was painful, but necessary. Prince William stood firm. He made it clear that no one was above responsibility. Charlotte slowly began to return to normal life. She started drawing again. She laughed softly while playing. But sometimes she stopped and looked around, checking doors, checking faces. Healing was slow, but it was happening. William and Catherine stayed close to her every moment they could. They listened. They comforted. They allowed her to speak when she was ready and rest when she was not. One evening, Charlotte asked a simple question. Why did this happen? William paused. He did not want to lie. He said sometimes adults make very bad choices. But he promised her one thing, that her voice mattered, and that what happened to her would help protect others. Charlotte nodded, trusting him. The gods who found her were honored quietly, not with loud ceremonies, but with deep respect. They had followed their instincts. They had saved a life. As weeks passed, the palace slowly found a new balance. It was not the same as before. It never would be. But it was more honest, more careful, more human. Prince William often thought about the moment everything changed. The sound from the trunk, the forced lock, the child pulled into the light. That moment reminded him why courage matters. As Part 3 comes to an end, one truth stands strong. Darkness can exist even in the safest places. But bravery, truth, and care can bring light back again. The story is far from over. But for now, Princess Charlotte sleeps peacefully, and that alone is a victory. The palace slowly entered a new phase, one filled with caution and quiet strength. After the truth came out, nothing felt the same. The walls were still tall and beautiful, but trust had cracks. Every person who worked there now understood how serious their duty was. A child had suffered, and that pain had changed everyone. Princess Charlotte continued to heal, step by step. Each morning, sunlight entered her room, and nurses checked on her gently. She was allowed to choose what she wanted to wear, what she wanted to eat, and when she wanted to rest. These small choices helped her feel safe again. Her parents stayed close, never rushing her, never forcing her to talk. Prince William took time away from public duties. For the first time in years, he placed family above everything else. He walked Charlotte to the garden, held her hand, and listened to her stories. Sometimes she'd talk about happy things. Other times she stayed silent, staring at the ground. William understood both. The palace brought in the best child specialists. They spoke with Charlotte using simple words and gentle voices. They helped her understand that what happened was not her fault. They taught her ways to feel safe again, even when fear came suddenly. At night, Charlotte still had bad dreams. She woke crying, calling out. William or Catherine would be there within seconds. They held her until her breathing slowed. They told her stories. They stayed until she slept again. Slowly, the nights became calmer. Outside the palace, the world continued to react. People talked about safety, trust, and responsibility. Many parents felt deep sadness for Charlotte. Messages of support came from everywhere. Letters, flowers, and gifts arrived daily. William made sure Charlotte knew people cared about her. Inside the palace, major changes were taking place. Security systems were rebuilt from the ground up. New cameras were installed. Old rules were removed. New ones were created. No vehicle could enter or leave without full inspection. No child could move without clear records. Every guard received new training, focused on awareness and courage. Officer James and Thomas were asked to help lead the training. They spoke honestly about that day. They explained how listening to instincts saved a life. Many guards listened with respect. Some felt ashamed. Others felt proud. All learned an important lesson. Camilla remained under legal watch. She no longer lived in royal comfort. She faced questioning again and again. The process was slow, but firm. There were no shortcuts. The law moved carefully, but it moved forward. Prince William refused to interfere. When asked if he wanted to protect the royal image, he said something simple and strong. A child comes before image. Those words spread quietly through the palace and beyond. One afternoon, Charlotte asked to visit the place where she was found. The doctors were unsure at first, but they agreed it could help her face a fear. With support, they took her to the underground parking area. The space was clean and bright now. Lights were stronger. Guards stood nearby. William held Charlotte's hand tightly. She looked around slowly. Her breathing became heavy at first, but she did not panic. She pointed to the spot. "That's where I was," she said softly. William knelt beside her. He told her she was very brave. He told her that place no longer had power over her. Charlotte took a deep breath and nodded. It was a small moment, but a powerful one. After that day, Charlotte seemed lighter. She smiled more. She played longer. Fear still came, but it no longer controlled her. Prince William returned to some public duties, but his focus remained clear. He spoke about child safety, not as a royal figure, but as a father. His words were calm and honest. People listened. Behind closed doors, the royal family faced hard conversations. Some relationships were broken. Some bonds were tested. Silence was replaced with truth. It was painful, but necessary. William made it clear that the palace would no longer protect wrong actions. He believed that real strength came from honesty, not power. One evening, William sat alone in the palace library. He looked at old photos of the family. He thought about the past, about how easily danger had hidden behind tradition and silence. He promised himself that this would not happen again. Charlotte entered the room quietly and climbed onto his lap. She held a small drawing in her hands. It showed a bright sun, flowers, and a family holding hands. "This is us," she said. William smiled and hugged her tightly. That drawing stayed with him. It reminded him why change mattered. As weeks passed, the palace slowly felt warmer again. Laughter returned to some halls. Music played softly in the evenings. Staff felt more united than before. They had learned together, suffered together, and grown together. The legal process continued, steady and serious. The truth was no longer hidden. The lesson was clear. Time moved forward inside the palace, slow but steady. The shock had passed, but the memory remained. Every hallway now carried a lesson. Every door, every guard, every rule had meaning. The palace was learning how to live again after pain. Princess Charlotte continued to grow stronger. Her laughter returned in short bursts at first, then longer ones. She began attending small lessons again inside the palace, surrounded by people she trusted. Her teachers used calm voices and simple tasks. No pressure was placed on her. Healing was more important than speed. Prince William watched these moments with quiet pride. He no longer measured success by public events or speeches. He measured it by Charlotte's smile, by the way she slept through the night, by how she walked into a room without fear. Catherine stayed close too. She listened carefully to Charlotte's feelings. When Charlotte spoke about fear, Catherine listened. When Charlotte spoke about joy, Catherine celebrated. The family became closer than ever before, bonded by a shared promise to protect one another. Outside the palace, public discussions continued. People talk about child safety, trust, and responsibility. Many institutions review their own systems after hearing what happened. Change spread quietly, far beyond palace walls. Prince William was invited to speak at a private child safety forum. He accepted, not as a royal figure, but as a father. He spoke in simple words. He said that silence protects harm, not children. He said courage often begins with listening. His words reached many hearts. Inside the palace, Officer James and Thomas continued to train new guards. They taught them to trust their instincts, to act even when it felt uncomfortable. They reminded them that rules exist to protect life, not status. One day, Thomas received a small letter. It was written in careful handwriting. It was from Charlotte. The letter thanked him for listening that day. It said he was brave. Thomas read it many times. He kept it folded in his pocket, close to his heart. The legal process moved forward slowly but firmly. There were no loud scenes, no drama. Only facts, responsibility, and consequence. The palace did not interfere. This was important. Justice needed space to breathe. Prince William made a clear decision. He ordered that palace record related to the incident be preserved and shared fully with authorities. This was not easy. Some advisors warned him about reputation. William listened, then said something simple. A child's safety is a reputation that matters. That sentence became a quiet rule inside the palace. Charlotte continued her therapy sessions. One day, the specialist asked her to draw how she felt now. Charlotte picked bright colors. She drew a strong wall, a door, and people standing together. When asked what it meant, Charlotte said the wall was protection, and the people were her family. The specialist smiled. One evening, Charlotte asked to help in the palace garden. She wanted to plant flowers. The gardeners showed her how to dig small holes and place seeds gently into the soil. William watched as she worked carefully, her hands dirty, her face serious. "These flowers will grow," Charlotte said. "Yes," William replied, "with care." That moment stayed with him. As months passed, the palace slowly reopened to some public duties. But things were different now. Children were given clear voices. Staff were encouraged to speak up. Safety meetings became normal. Silence was no longer seen as loyalty. Prince William noticed a change in himself, too. He no longer feared difficult truths. He welcomed them. He believed honesty was strength. One night, William walked alone through the palace halls. He stopped near the parking area, now bright and secure. He remembered that day clearly. The fear, the sound, the moment everything changed. But he also remembered the courage, the guard who listened, the officer who acted, the child who survived. He realized that while darkness had entered the palace, light had answered. Charlotte ran toward him suddenly, laughing. She had been playing hide-and-seek with her siblings. She hugged his legs and smiled up at him. "Found you," she said. William lifted her and laughed. At that moment, he knew they were moving forward. The palace was not perfect. It never would be. But it was awake now, aware, ready to protect what truly mattered.